Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show, a very special Joe and Joe Weather Show. Why? Because it is Joe Rayo's birthday. Happy birthday to Mr. Rayo. And the Joe and Joe Weather Show is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. They are back after a few month hiatus, and they're getting themselves ready for the upcoming months of the fall and hurricane season. So if you need a new generator, because you know how hard those were to find not too long ago, or anything else that you might need with regards to hurricane preparedness, give them a call. 631-756-1125 is the telephone number, and the website is omnitruevalue.com. Unless Joe Rayo wants to say omnitruevalue.com, because he hasn't said it in a long time. Are you with us? Hello? Okay. He's decided to live in the world of silence. Well, that's okay because I can't seem to find.
What about my T-shirt?
Hold on, you're not even on the air yet. Hang on a second, because I mean you're not on the screen yet because I happen to have lost. See, you take off. I take off 4 days, and what happens? Well, let's see. Is that it? There we are. There you are. Well, we knew you were grumpy for life. I mean, that just goes without saying. But it's a boxcar birthday, so happy birthday to you.
Yes, thank you.
Well, you already got.
I what I've been doing is what I do now is I think about my grandfather, and I could remember when he turned 66, and so I'm putting myself in that position all those years ago.
It's a different world then. It was a different.
Yeah,
it was a totally different world then. 66.
Well, that was for him. That was December 1974.
Oh.
So I'm thinking back.
At that time, 66 was not young. 66 today is young, so we got a long way to go. We still have a lot of brain matter to lose in the coming years. We have a lot of memories we're gonna, forget. So I mean, I do it now. Sometimes I can't complete sentences anymore. I'll be in the middle of a thought and I just completely forget what I'm saying. But happy birthday to you. And we have
really appreciate that.
Yes, well, no, birthdays are good things, Joe. They're not bad things. I don't know. Whoever got that started really did the world a great disservice. But I do want to acknowledge that we have two happy birthday super chats from Steve Lapointe and Chuck Cardillo hitting super chat early, and we thank both of them for that, and they both wish you a very happy birthday.
Thank you very, very much to Chuck and to Steve. It is greatly appreciated. And what else can I say except that you're right. And back in the day, back in the 70s, anyone who hit 66 years old probably was considered way over the hill. And guess what? In most cases today, a person of this age is not considered to be over the hill, unless, of course, you are trying to, hold on to a position in broadcasting.
Well, yeah. I knew, somehow I knew the conversation was going to go. Oh, and that reminds me, on that subject matter, I was commenting on somebody else's, on another Facebook page, and they were talking about, first of all, they got the whole story wrong. I don't want to talk about, Chris, the stuff with Chris Cuomo. That's not my point with this. But just to.
How did Chris Cuomo get into this?
Well, no. Let me tell you what happened. So this woman posts that being that I work in a doing what I do for a living, which is forecasting weather and getting it wrong all the time, I should just keep my mouth shut. I responded back by I checked her page and noticed that she was a bookkeeper, and I said this comes from somebody who does juggling for a living. You must do it well. So yeah, it's the whole you're going to go down the broadcast road. We've got a good weather show that we do and we enjoy ourselves. And I have to tell you, just on that note, because especially for guys, their self esteem is tied to their careers. When I see what passes on television right now, I am so glad I am not part of it. I'm just so glad I'm not part of it. So, did you get a birthday cake?
No,
Okay. Well, are you getting a birthday cake?
no,
Oh, all right.
I'm getting cupcakes.
Well, that's fine. I don't like cake, so I could care less about birthday cakes. I'd
I
rather.
went shopping with my wife at ShopRite yesterday, and she told me a few moments ago. She said, "I'm very surprised." I said, "What were you surprised about?" She said, "I'm surprised you didn't grab a box of Hostess cupcakes because there they were." But I didn't know that she wasn't going to swat me over the head with something if I tried to do that. So she's making me cupcakes right now upstairs.
Oh,
So
all right. Well, see that's
very nice.
that's really nice. All right. So why don't we get some weather done here? We've took 4 days off, and I don't know about you, but I kind of needed it a little bit to recharge, and I'm feeling good today. I hope you're feeling good, aside from your birthday.
Yeah, we spent the weekend in Vermont.
Ah, that's.
Oh,
Wait a minute. Hold it. Stop. I want you to explain something to me. Okay.
yes.
Uh, so what was that whole thing about you posted on Facebook? What was the whole thing about the roads?
Oh, you mean the picture with the roads,
Yeah. What
the
was that
road
all
map or
about?
whatever?
Yeah.
It's you when you get to this place, the place I'm speaking of is called Stellafane, which has a long history, by the way. It goes back into the 1920s. And in the 1980s, this huge field that we all used to congregate in was taken away from the club because the person who owned the land decided that he was going to use it for a Christmas tree farm. So they had to find some other place. And there was one east of the big field. It was not quite as large. And in order to get into the complex or to get into the area where all the events are, it's like a dirt road, and the road goes this way and that way and crisscrosses, and a very, as I mentioned on the Facebook post, very circuitous. And if you look at the map, you say to yourself, you know, all right, it can get a little crazy once you're there, and you start remembering from the previous year or the previous years where everything is,
Hmm.
then everything gets settled in. But I took a picture in front of one of the maps with a very confused look, and the road is not. Hey, I mean these are dirt roads, so thank God it didn't rain. It did rain on Thursday last week. Some people said it was the heaviest rain they ever saw up there, but fortunately everything dried out. It turned out to be a very nice weekend here in the Northeast, Joe, with low humidity, blue sky, bright sun, pleasantly warm temperatures. But now as we move through this week, it appears that we're headed for well, Thursday, it's going to be anything but pleasant out there. And I went on my Hudson Valley forecast for temperatures in the 90s to around 100.
Hmm.
And that doesn't include the heat index, which probably will make it feel a lot hotter. I know that there's a heat advisory already in place for Thursday and even for Friday as well. So
Yeah.
get ready for the heat.
Well, clearly, one of the lessons learned from this, it is sort of a parallel with respect to in the wintertime when we look at the longer range on models, and you get the snow maps that have the ridiculous snow amounts. which never become reality. I think we could probably lay the same idea to ridiculous high temperature maps that show readings of 110, 111 that we saw last week for this coming Thursday and Friday, and a heat wave that looked like it was going to last forever. And it turns out that the upper pattern's a little bit different. It's not quite what was imagined by the models, which was the idea that the Bermuda High and the heat ridge to the west were going to sort of couple together, and we were just going to burn up in an apocalypse that only Billy the Kid would from the chat board would enjoy. But that's not quite going to happen. But we are going to have that heat. In the meantime, why don't we take a look at our satellite picture, satellite loop for tonight, and there's not a whole lot happening. I guess the only thing that really stands out, Joe, is if you look down on the loop, there's this sort of circular ball of cloud cover with some showers and storms down through parts of southwest Georgia into Alabama, Mississippi. That's an upper low that is sitting there near the coast of Louisiana. So, sometimes those upper lows can drift down into the Gulf of Mexico and sit there and warm up and become tropical storms. And on occasion, they even become hurricanes. Well, this one's not going to do that. So we don't have that to worry about. And by the way, if you look on the lower right, you'll see that counterclockwise turning of another cold upper low that's out in the Atlantic. And that, too, sometimes can sit there and warm up over the course of a few days and then eventually become a tropical storm or hurricane. And that's not going to do that. So from that standpoint, we're just basically left with what's going on across the United States, and at least in the eastern part of the United States, for the most part, there's not a whole lot going on today.
No, and once again today, showers and thunderstorms taking place over Kentucky, which is the last place that they need that type of weather. It's really amazing, Joe. Here at my house, at my home base here in Putnam Valley, we have not had any measurable precipitation, measurable by my Davis weather station rain gauge, going all the way back to, I've already changed the calendar here, two Mondays ago. What was that? Let me just see here. Hang on for a second. So I believe it was Monday the 20th. Monday, June 20th was the last time I had any measurable rain here, and that was 0.70. And since then, we've had a few cases where we've had shower activity pass close to me, maybe a few raindrops, moistening the ground barely. But today is another example. My wife was coming down Dennytown Road, which is just to my north, said that she ran through a heavy-duty downpour. I said, well, congratulations, because it didn't downpour at all here at the house. So we've gone into day 15 of a dry spell here. And there are other places in the country that are also undergoing very dry weather, droughty conditions. And yet here's Kentucky. Kentucky, as we are well aware, receiving far more rain than anyone could have imagined. And now even today, there's more showery and thundery weather occurring over that part of the region. So it's been feast and famine. Feast if you are looking for rainfall and where it does rain is an excessive amount, or famine if you're into a spell of dry weather. And right here is a case in point. I mean, my big patches of brown across both my front and my back lawn, and we certainly could use the moisture, but it looks like we're not getting it, at least in the foreseeable next few days. And if anything, we're going to see the heat really get cranked up here. As I said, it looks like Thursday is going to be the pinnacle, the hottest day of the week, with those temperature readings climbing well into the 90s, maybe in one or two spots even touching the triple-digit mark.
Before I get back to the maps, just want to acknowledge again Chuck Cardillo, Steve Lapointe hitting super chat. We now have also birthday super chats for Mr. Rayo's birthday. Howard A. hitting super chat, and Johnny Quest hitting super chat, wishing you a happy birthday. So was Howard A. And Paul Roman hitting super chat, wishing you a happy birthday. And there's one more by Quiet John, wishing you a big happy birthday. And we have and Rishi Sharma also hitting super chat. Thank you everybody for hitting super chat tonight in honor of Mr. Rayo's birthday.
I might tell you that on this day 66 years ago,
66 years ago, that's just the way it was.
When I came into this world, it was, I looked it up too. It was blue sky, bright sun, low humidity, and probably low dew points. I wouldn't be surprised if the dew points were around 50 on my natal day, and a temperature peaking out at about 75. It was about as beautiful and as perfect a day as you possibly could have asked for any time in the summer. And that was on this day again, 66 some odd years ago.
66 years ago today.
Well, it wasn't anything like that today, because today you could feel the humidity, you could feel the temperature. I think my high today was 92 today, Joe, and probably going to do it again tomorrow.
Yeah, just about everybody got up into the lower 90s today. And just to finish off on the U.S. loop, we've got some storms, a lot of lightning strikes going on around that upper low that's down in the central Gulf Coast. And you can see there's a sort of arc that runs up the west coast of Florida and then goes over the top into showers and storms in Alabama and Mississippi. Meanwhile, to the north, a bit of a break, at least for now, in the Ohio Valley. There were some this morning. There were some strong thunderstorms that were moving out of Illinois and Indiana, but they seem to have weakened as they move southeastward, so that's a plus. We also have some storms in the northwestern part of the Great Lakes, moving out of northwestern Minnesota, northernmost Wisconsin, and into western Lake Superior. The monsoon producing showers and storms in the southwest, and you can see Pacific moisture that is being drawn off the coast of California and running northeastward up through Idaho and Utah, and then continuing up into the Dakotas. But for now, it's all about the heat ridge here in the eastern part of the United States. And the radar, I'll give this a quick refresh. We can take a look at what's happening. Maine today was one of the areas where SPC had eastern Maine with severe weather risk, and most of the showers and storms there are starting to move out. A couple of popcorn scattered thunderstorms were on the radar earlier this evening, but what's left is a cell at of 7:49 Eastern Time, moving across southern Connecticut. Looks like it is sort of straddling the coastline there along I-95. Another thunderstorm starting to move into northwestern Rhode Island, but really it's very little going on until you get down into the Gulf states there. You can see those storms from Georgia northwestward and then up in Florida. The western Great Lakes with some showers and storms, and you can see the moisture back through the Dakotas. And it's a little less than what we've been seeing over the last several days or more in the southwest. Yeah, there are showers, but it seems like it's a little bit more scattered in nature than where we have been with this over the last few days. The Storm Prediction Center, slight risk up in the western lakes, but that may have already been played out. Also from Illinois down to Tennessee, I think much of that may be done with now, and in northern Maine there. And there, it's probably mostly done. For tomorrow, we have a slight risk of severe weather indicated from Michigan down through Illinois into parts of Missouri. Notice no thunderstorms from Maine to Virginia, and just the scattered general thunderstorm activity going on everywhere else, and a marginal risk in southwestern Arizona. And on day 3, which is Thursday into Friday, there's no severe weather risk, at least for the time being. So that's a good thing. And rainfall over the next 7 days, nothing really to write home about. Anywhere from 3/4 of an inch to pockets of 1.5 inches plus in the Ohio Valley, the Great Lakes, and the interior Northeast, also along the Gulf Coast. That continues, and also along the Southwest. So I'm going to ask you, Joseph Rayo, as I put up the upper air for the latest run of the GFS. What is your view? What is your opinion? What do you think is going to transpire in the coming 2 weeks in terms of the overall weather pattern? I ask you that question.
The way I'm looking at it right now, Joe, I was kind of hoping that we'd get a significant break along about the 9th or 10th of August with the bending of the jet stream producing a short wave that might actually pull in some drier, cooler air from Canada. But from everything I've looked at today, it seems like we're pretty much going to be in the same pattern for the next week to 10 days at least. There doesn't seem to be any kind of significant change. There doesn't seem to be any kind of significant, uh, push of drier, cooler air, or even drier air of any significance that we could look forward to. And it would appear to me, at least, that we're going to be dealing with moderate to high levels of humidity. All right, maybe the temperatures are not going to be as extreme as what we're going to see on Thursday, with readings again soaring to near 100, but they're going to be mostly in the low 90s and upper 80s, I think, for much of the time. Again, over the next week or 10 days, and maybe even beyond. What do you
We'll
what's your
get
opinion?
we keep getting these weather. We be calling them. They're not really cold fronts because the air behind these systems is at least as warm, if not warmer, than the air ahead of it. We keep getting these weather fronts that bring very short temporary dew point relief. And I think that process will probably continue. And yeah, it looks like it's going to be very warm. I mean, the models were trying a couple of days ago to show a rather robust cool off coming late next week. And there's a big difference, by the way. I'm looking at the 12Z GFS, okay, which actually has a not insignificant trough moving into New England late next week. With below normal heights, all that blue you see going all the way down into North Carolina. I mean, that's a nice looking trough that's swinging by, and we probably would have maybe some severe weather ahead of it before it goes by. Who knows? But it kind of digs that trough right along the east coast. It keeps the heat ridge just to our west, and then an upper low cuts off north of between 40 north and Bermuda, and it just sort of sits there. The heat ridge gets squashed to some degree. But then I just looked at the 18Z, which, we know that it probably has a very low reliability factor. But when I look at the 18Z run on the 500, it's gone into heat wave
What
mode.
happened?
What happened?
What
Well,
happened?
what do you mean? What
Yeah, I
happened?
mean, like not this is what I've been saying for years. I mean, like you look at what happens on the 12Z, and then you take a look at the 18Z, and what happened to that wonderful?
No, it gets kept all the way up into Canada. It never drops into New England. It just keeps on going, and it actually takes the Bermuda high and the heat ridge to the west and tries to couple them again to an extent. But there's still a weakness there in that northern part of the jet stream in Canada, so there probably will be some dew point relief. But we know what happened when the model tried to do this before. That didn't quite work out. But I love it when
Right.
you look out 14, 15 days on one run. There's a deep trough on the next run. There's a 600 ridge at 360 hours. There's a 600 plus upper high over Pittsburgh. I mean, it's nuts. It's nuts. So I can't take that too seriously considering what we've just went through. With the models trying to show that, and it never really happened. Why don't we look at the European? Maybe the European can give us although that's been no great shakes either. But if we look at the European, okay, so we get this, we got this weak weather front that's coming through tonight. Gives us a little bit of dew point. That's the one thing tomorrow. There'll probably be a little bit of dew point relief. Uh, Temperatures up in the low 90s and dew points that'll be plus or minus a degree or two of 60, which is not terrible. Then it gets really humid Thursday. I'm just looking here on the European. Yeah, I mean the European out. Well, I'm not even to 120 hours yet. But as we go through next week, it drops a trough into New England. down to the not quite as strong, maybe a little less strong than what the GFS had, but it does have troughing along the East Coast at 240 hours, and the westerlies down to South Carolina. So, I mean, it does have a break in there. So, it's not a robust. It doesn't look like a robust break by any means.
Well, I will tell you that the folks over at the Climate Prediction Center actually place us on the 8 to 14 day um,
Would
forecast.
you
Their
like
8 to
to share
14 day.
this?
They have the north. I would love to share this, but you always say have the
No, it's it's
the
it,
inability of me to
no.
share.
I know. I don't tell you you have the inability. I just sometimes forget to turn it on, which I just did.
Yes,
So go ahead.
okay, okay. I appreciate that. So we'll show you right now. Um, First of all, on screen is the 6 to 10 day outlook, and you can see that now this is valid. It was issued today, August the 2nd, valid from August the 8th through August the 12th, and you can see that we are in the above normal. In fact, let me just zoom in on the Northeast. This is above normal. Not a whole heck of a lot above normal. Certainly, it is not like. I'm just going to check here for the moment. 1, 2. So I believe this is like it's at leaning toward 40 to 50% probability of above normal. I mean, not really overly over the top, so to speak. But now you take a look at the 8 to 14 day prognosis, and you see quite a bit of a change from the 10th through the 16th of August. Now, notice that the 6 to 10 day and the 8 to 14 day, in this case, overlap between the 8th and the 10th of August. So that means that sometime around early next week, say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week, some kind of a change, significant change, in fact, in terms of temperatures is anticipated. And they're now, again, leaning toward below, maybe about 33 to 40% probability of below normal across the Northeast down into the Ohio Valley. So that'll be a nice change from especially the searing heat that we're going to see here tomorrow, and especially so on Thursday. As far as precipitation is concerned, well, on the 6 to 10 day, they have above normal or leaning to above normal conditions, maybe some afternoon scattered showers they might be implying, or a late day thunderstorm. That's good, again, because it has been anything but above normal, at least right here at Rancho Arroyo for the last 2 weeks. And then as we move on into the forecast for the 8 to 14, again, not terribly much above, but again, still above normal in terms of precip. So changes in the forecast from above normal to below normal, a transition from that after next week and into 8 to 14 days from now. And also, generally speaking, above normal, again, probably, translating into afternoon or evening showers or scattered thunderstorms right straight on through. I'm just hoping to get something. I mean, I'm not asking for, a heavy soaking rain or many, many days. I'm just looking for something
Yeah.
more than what I've had over the last 15 days, which has just been a couple of spits here and there, and that's about it. So we shall see, Joe. That's how CPC Climate Prediction Center is looking at this from now through again the next couple of weeks.
All right. Well, as far as the tropics are concerned, I'll switch to the satellite loop of the tropical Atlantic, and I mean, if you look on this, there's upper lows all over the place, which is not really conducive to tropical cyclone development. You could see one north of Puerto Rico. That was the one I pointed out on the U.S. loop that was on the lower right. And if you look out over the just to the northeast of the Cabo Verde Islands, there's another what looks like a giant upper low that is sitting there. And the intertropical convergence zone, or the MDR, or whatever you want to call it, from the African coast westward is still pretty far to the south. So we really need to see the upper air change across the Atlantic before anything from a tropical nature is going to happen. However, I will say, from what I've looked at, that such a change may be coming soon. From that respect, I'm thinking maybe around the middle of the month, we're going to start to see things gel up in terms of tropical cyclone development. If this is the La Nina year and the La Nina is still active, it can't stay. It's got to start to rev up soon. And we saw, I forgot which year it was, but it was sometime in the last couple of years. Maybe it was 2 years ago or 3 years. Maybe it was 3 years ago or 4 years ago, where we had sort of this dead spot until we got to the middle of August, and suddenly, we had the first 5 storms came in a hurry, and then we sat in this really long stretch until the F storm formed in the Caribbean, and then it was one after another, and we quickly, made up the difference, and so all of a sudden we had all these storms and started to run through the alphabet. So I'm not saying it's necessarily going to happen the same way, but it wouldn't surprise me if we wind up going from no storms to all of a sudden having 2 or 3 on the map and having a very busy September. But and it should be, considering it's a La Nina year. So I'm that's kind of where my head's at with this. And I think you have to look again out in the Atlantic is where the upper air is all messed up. The Bermuda high is weak. The pressures are actually going to be rising up in the North Atlantic, so that should be conducive to tropical cyclone development overall. And Joe, to those who follow it with the Madden-Julian oscillation, talking about it going into phase 2, which apparently is very supportive for tropical cyclone development going into phase 2 in about 10 days to 2 weeks. So we'll see if that turns out to be correct.
Well, Bill Goodman, our mutual friend, Bill Goodman at the National Weather Service Forecast Office in New York City, actually in Upton, New York, Upton, Long Island, Eastern Long Island, he is thinking that once we get through the middle part of August, fasten your seatbelts, because he thinks that we're going to see a noticeable uptick in the activity, tropical storm and hurricane activity, which makes some sense. Now, yesterday, I posted not an overly long, but a longer than usual comment about the month of August in the Atlantic Basin, which began much the same way as we saw much of July. Very quiet so far, as you just mentioned, Joe, as far as any tropical disturbances are concerned. In fact, out of 31 days this past July, 28 of those 31 days saw not a single named tropical cyclone. It was only in the first 3 days of the month of July that we had Bonnie, July the 1st. And ironically, Bonnie crossed over into the Pacific and became a very potent Eastern Pacific storm. But it had its start in the Atlantic on the first day of July. And then we had Colin on July 2nd and 3rd. But the rest of the month of July 2022 saw nothing over the tropical waters. Now, as I posted yesterday, you might think this is the good news regarding the potential for tropical storm and or hurricane activity. Maybe we might see only a few storms, very few storms at all during this summer. However, what we have just experienced is really nothing new and is actually quite typical for this time of the year. As Dr. Neil Frank, a former director of the National Hurricane Center, told me in a radio interview I conducted with him back in the 80s, he said July is usually a slack month. We don't usually see much in the way of tropical cyclone activity. And in fact, when we see a lot of activity in July, that is unusual. And he's right.
Yeah.
Over the previous 10 summers, the average number of July days that saw no named tropical systems in either the Atlantic or the Caribbean waters was 24.9. And the number of named storms in July over the last 10 summers averaged a rather paltry 1.4. In fact, there were 3 years, 2016, 2014, and 2012, where there were no named storms that formed at all in the month of July. The only anomalous July in the last 10 was just 2 years ago in 2020. That's when we had five, count them, five tropical troublemakers: Eduard, Faye, Gonzalo, Hannah, and at the very end of the month of July, and was more of an August homewrecker, Isaias. So generally speaking, tropical storm and hurricane activity does not begin to ramp up until about the second week of August, with the peak activity coming around the 10th of September. And thereafter, the activity diminishes, but only slowly at first. And then a more precipitous drop off comes after the second week of October. In fact, after a typically quiet July, we can usually expect on average another 12 named storms to develop. That could take us all the way down the list of this year's names as far as the end storm, Nicole. We might get as far down as that in spite of the quiet July before this is all over said and done. So don't let your guard down. Just because July was, as Dr. Frank noted, a slack month, that doesn't mean we needn't worry about tropical activity in 2022. Tropical storms and hurricanes are the Earth's way of ridding itself of the tremendous amount of excess heat that's built up over the tropical waters during the summertime. And think of this more as nature letting off steam. It does this, unfortunately, by releasing massive amounts of energy and moisture into the atmosphere, and as a consequence, creating some of the most powerful and destructive storms on Earth. No problem, of course, when they're fish storms and they remain over the water, but very problematic when they drift or end up churning toward populated land masses. And by the way, just to finish off this dissertation, one final note: one of those 3 years in which, in the last 10, we had no named tropical storms in July was 2012. That eventually did give rise to a tropical system that adversely affected the tri-state area just before Halloween, rather late in the hurricane season. And I think some of you might remember it. It was a storm that was christened Sandy. So again, quiet month of July doesn't necessarily mean that we're home free and we don't have to worry about any tropical activity. In fact, if I recall, Joe, in 1992, we didn't have the first named tropical system until the end of August,
Fine.
the A storm, and that storm was Andrew. And if you remember, Andrew was like a buzzsaw. It cut right through the middle of Florida, eventually rammed into the Gulf coastal states, and that was a pretty destructive storm, so destructive, its name was retired. So again, quiet now. Enjoy the quiet and tranquility, because as Bill Goodman alluded to me again yesterday, there's a certain feeling, and I think you've had that same feeling, Joe, that once we get past the middle of August, things are going to start revving up out there in the open waters.
Yep. Agreed. A couple of more super chats to just acknowledge. William Uber hitting super chat. Happy birthday, Joe. Have a few beers. Well, he actually puts up the emojis of more than a few beers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 beers. Okay, so go for it. Also, we have Mark G hitting super chat, wishing you a happy birthday, and it looks like he's got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 beers on his.
Oh.
So that's 12 plus 7 is 19. And Ken Musillo.
You have no idea how. You have no idea how honored I am. Now, no, I'm not going to push you on this. There is something that eventually you're going to reveal to all of our audience, but I guess tonight is not the night, right?
Yeah, no, I'm not. Yeah, no, I'm not saying anything. I have nothing to say. I have nothing to say. No, I have nothing to say.
You might want to reveal something.
No, I have nothing to say.
I'm going to tell everybody anyway. Joe is going to WCBS TV. He's going to be.
Yeah. Save that for April Fool's Day.
All right.
Yeah, Ken Musillo hitting super chat tonight also. Happy birthday to Mr. Rayo. Okay, let's go to the weather maps.
I feel so fair. I told you this more times than once, Joe. I do not. I stay away from alcohol. I am my wife, who is German,
right,
and is in charge of the big German American club Springfest and also the Oktoberfest in September. And they have a big beer truck there. And all of the people with the club, they come over to me and they say, Joe, how come you're not having a drink? How come you're not having any beer? And this is unbelievable, but it's absolutely true. Today, 66 years, and I have never had or have never drank a glass of beer or drank a bottle of beer. I've never acquired the taste for beer. Now, root beer is another thing, but
Ugh.
regular beer
Ugh.
or Rheingold or Schaefer or Budweiser, they never have had any beer before. Uh, but I don't know if that sounds weird, but
No, listen.
um,
I'm not a big drinker either. I mean, I have a beer every once in a while. I have a glass of wine every once in a while. Uh, but yeah, I'm not one to I'm not one to sit there with a dozen six packs and go through them over the course of a day. No, I'm not doing that. Or guzzle down an entire bottle of wine. I would never be able to do this show in that condition. So with that in mind, we
I
are.
love Steve Lapointe. Wow, wow, Rayo truly is a nerd.
Yeah, well,
Well,
anyhow.
it's something I've never acquired. I've never had acquired a taste for coffee either, Steve. I don't know what that makes me. But look at that! Look at that line of thunderstorm and shower activity
Well,
on the latest
that's
radar.
tomorrow's SPC risk area from Michigan down to Illinois. It looks like it bypasses Kentucky, which is a good thing, but it doesn't really go crazy the next day when it reaches the East Coast. Now, this is Thursday. Now, I'm going to cover for the possibility that there could be a shower or thunderstorm Thursday afternoon or evening with all the daytime heating if we go to 100. On the last time we went to 100, all of a sudden there were these little clusters of storms that popped up. I'm not saying it's going to happen again, but I want to cover myself just in case. But it looks like if you believe the GFS, that'll happen mostly inland in Pennsylvania and in upstate New York, and then down into West Virginia, Northern Virginia, and into the southern Appalachians. And then Friday, as the front goes by, I mean, it's showing. Who knows what it looks like? Your cold front is going to be, somewhere like this, and who knows where those thunderstorms are going to be? But I think the risk is there for Friday. That front just basically falls apart. For Saturday, there's some inland storms that form in the afternoon, but then they're gone. Sunday, we're back to a west wind and probably sunshine. It's more than likely go into the 90s. And I think maybe next Monday could be very hot too with a west wind and another front that's approaching from the northwest that comes through sometime. Now here's where the GFS loves to bring fronts through at 8 o'clock in the morning, and oftentimes it winds up either coming faster and moving through Monday night, or it's slower and comes through Tuesday night. So one of the two things will happen. Either this thing will speed up or it'll slow down. I'll bet the ridge is stronger and it'll slow down so that maybe it doesn't come through until late Tuesday. And then after that, maybe a bit of a break. I don't know. Again, this particular run was not exactly impressive when it comes to breaks. And by the way, just looking at some of the temperatures, these are the Weather Service forecast highs for Thursday. Uh, Mostly most of the area from northern Virginia all the way up to Massachusetts, most temperatures between 95 and 100. And I wouldn't be shocked if somebody goes to 101 or 102 through all of this.
Well, certainly Newark will.
Oh yeah, well because
Newark may make it to 100. Newark may make it to 106.
Newark and Vineland, New Jersey. Those are the two thermometer hotspots that we have. Oh, and by the way, so now we're back up full screen here. I just want to I don't know if Mrs. Rayo is watching, but I want you to take a look at this. So I went to the farmers market here in North Georgia on Saturday, and one of my friends uh, got me a locally grown cabbage, Joe. So take a look at this locally grown cabbage. All right, you see it there?
Okay.
You see it there? Now Believe it or not, that cabbage. Now next to it is a tray of chicken drumsticks and turkey thighs that I was doing in the air, going to do in the air fryer. That cabbage is as big as a basketball. Okay, so and it weighed. I mean, at the very least, I wish I had weighed it. I don't have a scale, so I wish I had weighed it. And I paid $2. I didn't pay for it, but my friend bought it. She paid $2 for that cabbage. Okay, and so I brought it home, and I got another picture. I got to bring it up here. I brought it home, and I figured out what am I going to do with this? And lo and behold, I chopped it all up and I made a brine and I canned it and made 5 jars of sauerkraut that are now sitting in my cabinet. They have to ferment for 3 weeks before I can, use it. But I got 5 jars of sauerkraut out of it. I'm very proud of myself. My my mom and my grandmother, every my aunts, they would all every autumn they would go down to the hunts. Well, my uncles would go because they knew how to drive, but they would go down to the Hunts Point Market and buy bushels of tomatoes and bring them back, and we would, you know, we always would do this at the end of August into September, and we would can tomatoes for the winter because we're Italian, so we eat a lot of pasta and make a lot of sauce. So canning was done all the time. So I did it with cabbage and made sauerkraut.
Wow.
So
Don't you make out of cabbage? Don't you make like
I'm
coleslaw?
not a fan of coleslaw. I'm not a big coleslaw fan.
Okay.
You know, so I
Wow.
sauerkraut. I really like sauerkraut, but not a huge fan of coleslaw.
Well, that's a lot of people on the chat board. Miss Spellerite saying, "Fantastic Joe goes great with brats and dogs."
Yes.
And Mark Tara said that would go good with hot dogs always.
Well,
and and
that's the plan.
and Steve Lapointe says, when you're constipated, eat cabbage.
Oh, cabbage is very good for your gut. If you have stomach issues like I do, cabbage is very, very good for your gut. So I highly recommend it. Oh, so Daniel, I'm sorry, Johnny Quest asks Joe, and I'm going to bring up the surface map in order to illustrate this a bit. But Johnny Quest wanted to know because I brought it up the other day. What is a thermal low, and how does that work?
Well, that forms out in the southwestern United States.
Yes, and I got the surface map to show that. Um, so basically, what it is when you look at the summertime pressure patterns on a surface map in the summertime, and sometimes lasting into the fall, the early part of the fall, you'll notice that in the southwestern part of the United States, there's the highs and lows are very weak, but there's usually a semi-permanent low that just sits there. And in fact, they have one analyzed south of Las Vegas, and another one down into Mexico. So this map looks a little bit overdone in terms of how it's drawn, but most of the time, Johnny Quest, the isobar around the low kind of looks like that. So you get this flow that is coming up from Mexico into the southwest and then turns more northwest when you get to California. And that it's a normal, it's there every year, the thermal low. And of course, underneath it, the air is very warm and you get these, it's hot actually, temperatures well up above 100 for much of the time. But sometimes you can get that thermal low shifts a little bit where, and this is what we're seeing to some extent now, where it's allowing moisture to come up from Mexico and from points further south from the tropical Pacific. some of that tropical moisture is getting pushed northward into the southwestern part of the United States because of, depending on where the thermal low is and how strong it is or it isn't. But in this particular case, it's been favorable to continue to bring up the moisture, and you get these monsoon rains that go on in the southwestern part of the United States. It just happened that this year it seemed like those monsoon rains came about 6 weeks early. So, because usually they're starting up at the end of July, beginning of August, but we've been seeing them there for the better part of the last 5 weeks, which for them was good news because of how dry it's been.
Yeah, the hotter. We all know that warm air is lighter than cooler air, cool dense air. So the hotter air is less dense, less dense than the surrounding cooler air, and it rises, and that leads to the formation of a low pressure area, not like a low pressure storm system, but just an area of lower pressure in the atmosphere. And that is what we refer to when you plot out on a map the isobars. You'll find an area of lower pressure, and that is indeed the heat low or the thermal low. In fact, there's one place I think in California, Southern California, called Thermal California, and one almost gets the impression that the low pressure was named for that town because most of the time the low pressure area, as I mentioned at the very onset of the conversation here about this, is out over the southwestern states, out over Southern California, and that's where you have that formation in the summertime of low pressure. And elevated areas, higher places that are higher up in the atmosphere can enhance the strength of a thermal low because they warm more quickly than the atmosphere, which surrounds them at the same altitude. And so as a result, you get that area of low pressure. And that's what we call, again, the thermal or the heat low.
All right. So the chairman, Scott Briller, is running around doing some, I believe he's still doing COVID stuff, and we wish him well as always. So he, in honor of your birthday, and this will probably going to use for the next couple of days, for Briller Jeopardy tonight, Joe, and for the next few nights, it's going to be Mets trivia, New York Mets trivia. Now, before we start, I just want to just acknowledge Jason Schaefer hitting Super Chat and wishing you the happiest of birthdays. So are you ready for this? Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Question number 1. Which Hall of Fame pitcher began...
Can I have a phone a friend? Can I have a phone a friend? Maybe I can call my friend Howie Rose.
Yeah, you're not going to need it.
Not
for this question. Which Hall of Fame...
Oh, okay.
Because everybody knows the answer to this. Which Hall of Fame pitcher began his career with the New York Mets and went on to rack up over 5,000 strikeouts? Was it...
that would be Lynn Nolan Ryan.
Right. I figured I didn't have to give you the choices. Now, there is a quick question here. Which Met led the team in home runs in 2002? Was it Mo Vaughn, Mike Piazza, Jeremy Burnitz, or Eduardo Alfonso?
Ooh. Well, I don't think it was Mo. And I don't think it was Jeremy Burnitz either. And I don't think it was Alfonso. I think it was Piazza.
Yeah,
I think Piazza was the one who led the Mets that year.
All right, I'm going to hold that because I have to hit the click the submit button, and I don't want to lose this page. So I'll do that at the end to see what it is. The first number retired by the Mets belonged to...
Casey Stengel.
That is correct. Now, he was their first manager, but what was the old professor's number?
37.
That is also correct. From which franchise did the Mets sign catcher Gary Carter in the 1984-85 offseason?
From the Montreal Expos.
Again, correct. I was drafted by the Mets in the 7th round of the 2007 draft. I made my major league debut in September of 2010. In my first full season of 2011, I played in 100 games. I batted .292 and hit 10 home runs. Who am I?
Would that be David Wright?
That would not be David Wright.
It would not be David Wright.
No.
Okay. No. In fact, I should.
This baseball player Hails from Fontana, California.
And he made his debut in 2010.
Yes. Da 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 da.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday,
Oh,
happy birthday. Happy birthday to you.
I
Ta-da!
see
And
it.
many
You got yourself a
more.
cupcake.
I got myself my cupcake. Thank you, dear.
You're welcome. Make
Yeah.
a wish and blow it out quick before you
Oh,
burn the house
Before
down.
you.
well,
For God's sake,
all right.
Rayo, blow out that candle before you set it up in flames. What's the matter with you?
There we go.
All right,
How's that?
beautiful.
Thank
Now
you.
back to the
Thank you.
question. Back to the question.
All right.
Oh wait, before you answer, Ms. Fowlerite hitting super chat tonight, wishing you a happy birthday with a cake and a wrapped present.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Fowlerite. Now, again, back to that question. What is who are we talking about here?
I don't know
I
who we're
was
talking about. So somebody broke in with the Mets in
yes.
2010.
Da
Is
da
that?
da 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 do da do
Yeah.
da 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 da
Oh,
da da.
Duda. Yeah, Lucas
Lucas
Duda.
Duda, yes. Um all right, here's our fifth and final question, and then I'm going to go and check what that other one I asked you earlier is. Which Met player was the first player in Major League history to be traded for himself?
Oh, Harry Cheedy.
That is correct. You did pretty good except for the doodah thing. So you said, Mike, for the question I asked you earlier, what Met led the team in home runs in 2002? You say Mike Piazza, and I've just clicked the
Right.
submit button, and the answer is Mike Piazza. You are correct. Piazza smacked 33 homers for New York in 2002. He hit his 170th home run for the New York Mets. So we'll come back to more questions, Joe, tomorrow on
Yes.
Briller Jeopardy. I don't know where Scott managed to find that, but that's actually pretty cool and very impressive that you know as much as you do
Well,
as opposed to do da.
I just want to say to all of you that especially those of you who hit super chats with some ridiculous numbers tonight, and I want to just say thank you. I really am touched by that, and also thank you for being such fans of Joe and Joe. There are a lot more people that we see in the chat board, lurkers as they call it, and they know Joe. And of course, when we get into the winter time, or if we get into a major situation with a tropical system, a lot of people gravitate to this channel to watch us because they know that you and I, between our 80 some odd years of experience in this crazy world of weather, are probably going to give the most down to earth, right down the line, straightforward type of weather information instead of hyping everything or screaming, watch out. I mean, and um, I bitch and complain about the fact that you and I were put out to pasture, um, 3 years ago because I was really enjoying having a blast working with you side by side, and then all of a sudden it was like a short circuit, and that was it. And
Well, the only
our
difference,
TV,
look, the only difference is that, all right, we're not sitting across from each other for 8 hours a day, but which is you're out. I'm happy not to be in the office environment. You may not be happy about not being about being out of it, but I'm happy about that. But we're here.
well, this is
We're here 5 days a week. It's the
this has been a
technology
great
has put us together and kept us together.
this has been a great experience doing the show with you over the last, I guess, 4 years.
Hmm.
Do we have an actual anniversary date?
You know what? I
Before we
have to.
started?
the thing was when we were at FiOS, some nights I pulled you in, some nights I didn't. It wasn't, we didn't really have an official show going until after we got thrown off. I have to, after they shut FiOS down, I have to go back in. I have over 3,000 videos of weathercasts in my YouTube video library. So I literally would have to go back and try and find maybe the first time that we called it the Joe and Joe Weather Show. But you got to figure. So we left. I mean, we certainly, at least from this particular show with the both of us together every single night, you got to figure that we probably started sometime in December of 2019. So we're coming up on 3 years. But then we were doing it on and off for a couple of years before that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know. So
Right.
it's either 3-year anniversary coming up in December or a 5-year anniversary coming up or something.
We should just pick a date and just call it that, our anniversary date. And
well, we'd have to pick we'd have to pick a date in a year. Let me go back and find a show. Like maybe I could find the first time you and I did a show together, and we'll see what date that is, and we'll call that the anniversary date.
Right here in our house, tomorrow is another auspicious date for at least Renata and I. We moved into this house from Levittown, Long Island. Tomorrow will be the 20th year that we have been here in Putnam Valley. I can't believe it's that. And this makes this house for us, but I can't say that for Renata. I don't really know yet. But for me, of all the homes that I've lived in, going back to my days in Harlem and then going back to the Bronx or whatever, but this house has been the place where I've been for more years than any other. So tomorrow will be another special occasion for me and at least for Renata. 20 years here in beautiful, bucolic Putnam Valley. And I don't know how many more years we'll be here. It's such a big house. We're thinking about downsizing and going to a smaller home sometime down the road. But anyway, tomorrow, 20 years for us here in this house. And I want to thank again everybody for tuning in tonight. And those of you who hit super chats, thank you so very, very much. I'm just, the words fail me as to how I feel for all of you who watch us every night, and for those of you who hit super chats and everything else. It's just been a wonderful experience. And here's to, I don't even have a glass here, but if I did have my invisible glass, here's to many more years of Joe and Joe.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we got a long way to go yet. All right, so time to say goodnight. It's after 8:30. I got to.
Yes, it's time for me to.
I'm almost.
Time for me to have my cupcake.
Yes, I'm almost into season 8 of Perry Mason, so I'm almost done. I got a little more than 2 seasons to go, and that's it. So I'll talk to you. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody. Thank you also for hitting super chat tonight, and we'll see you tomorrow at 7:30 Eastern. Nighty night, everybody.
Nighty night.